Have you heard the story about Boris Becker's tongue? I know it sounds a bit weird, but today I'm going to tell you the story and how it helped Andre Agassi to read his serve. But more importantly, I'm going to give you some tips on how you can start to read your opponent's serves more effectively. Let's go. Welcome back. My name is Ashley Neves and I run the Tennis Mentor YouTube and Instagram accounts, providing content for tennis players, coaches and parents to get more out of the sport. I usually create videos like this one helping you to improve your game, so if this interests you, consider subscribing to the channel and let me know in the comments below if you have any suggestions for future videos. Anyway, let's get this funny story out of the way so that I can help you with your return of serve. So some of you might have heard this story before, as there was a video doing the rounds a few years ago talking about the story where Andre Agassi was really struggling to beat Boris Becker. He played him on 3 separate occasions and really struggled to read his serve. So after that third match, he went home and watched a load of footage of Boris playing and hitting serves. And what he noticed was Boris stuck his tongue out during his service motion. As he'd throw the ball up, he'd stick his tongue out into different positions. When Agassi looked more closely, it actually linked directly to where Boris was aiming his serve. Every time Boris stuck his tongue out this way, his serve would go this way. And if he stuck his tongue straight out, it would be a body serve. So Agassi put this to the test in his next match. And believe it or not, he won. In fact, out of their next 11 encounters, Agassi actually won 10 of them. Now, Agassi is known to be one of the best returners of all time, and somehow he managed to figure out Boris's tell. Of course, he didn't tell Boris until they'd both retired. It's a really funny story, right? But fortunately for you, you don't need to look in that much detail at your opponent's serve. There are normally some more obvious signs that can tell you where they're going to aim, and I'm going to give you 3 of them in this video, along with a bonus tip at the end which can help your return to become even better. So first of all, I'm going to talk you through a standard returning position, because once you know these 3 signs that are going to give away where your opponent's going to serve to, you can adjust this position to get yourself into the perfect spot to make a good return. Now, a very standard returning position that I like to use and that I like to teach is having your outside leg where the singles line and baseline cross. So when I'm looking to return a serve, this is going to be my standard position. Now, this position will change depending on who I'm playing, whether they've got a big serve or a slower serve, whether they're left-handed, right-handed, or whether they hit a flat serve or lots of slice or lots of kick. But this should be your starting point. Understanding this will help you with your return when it comes to reading the serve and the 3 tips that I'm just about to give you. So your first opportunity to start to read your opponent's serve is actually in your match warm-up, the 5 minutes that you get to hit with your opponent before they play. Now, if you know your opponent already, you'll actually have a head start and you'll understand how they serve. But more often than not, you'll have to use your match warm-up to do this. Whilst they're serving in the warm-up, use this as an opportunity to see what type of serve they're hitting most often. Usually, a player will hit more of their favourite serve in the warm-up than their weaker serves. So look for whether they're hitting their serve out wide, down the tee. This may vary from deuce to ad side. Look to see if they're hitting their serves mainly flat or whether they're preferring to hit slice or kick serves. And by the end of the warm-up, they'll start hitting their serves at their full speed. This will help you to know how far back to stand. If your opponent's got a really big flat serve, you might need to stand a little further back to give yourself more space and more time. However, if they don't have much power and they tend to hit with a bit more spin, you could push a little bit closer to the baseline for your return serve. From that standard position that I mentioned before, with your outside leg standing where the singles line crosses the baseline, if your opponent's got a big serve, you're going to want to take a few steps back. When you step back though, instead of stepping back in a straight line, in line with the singles line, you actually want to move back at a diagonal from where your opponent is standing. So if I'm standing further back, I may end up within the tram lines here, as opposed to with my outside leg in line with the singles line. The same goes for if your opponent's got a much weaker serve or they're hitting a second serve. If you want to move forwards from this position, you don't want to move straight forwards. You'll be creating a big gap down the tee here. You want to move in a diagonal line towards your opponent where they're standing for their serve. So if you're moving in a little bit closer for a shorter, weaker serve, this is the sort of position you'd be looking to move to. As I mentioned before, you might also want to adjust the width of your return position depending on your opponent's favorite serve. If your opponent is a right-handed player and likes to hit with lots of slice, you might consider stepping slightly further out wide, allowing you to get to those serves. Because after all, if they can only hit slice on their serves, if they do hit a really good slice down the tee, it's still going to be coming in towards you here. On the flip side of this, if you're playing playing a lefty that hits with lots of slice, you might want to consider moving more this way. Think about where their serve is going to end up. They're less likely to be able to pull you out wide and more likely to be able to hit a really good slice down the tee. If you're playing against a player who has a really good serve and has lots of variety and is able to hit all types of spin and all directions, that's when you're going to have to look at one of these next 2 pointers to help you to read their serve. So the next thing that's going to give away where your opponent can serve to is their court position when they're serving. You'll notice that some players stand very close to the tee when they set up for their serve. You'll notice that others stand a little bit wider and some even like to stand nearer towards the tram line. Now, this does depend on whether you're playing singles or doubles, but the same rules apply when it comes to knowing where to stand on your return of serve. When you look at players that stand really close to the tee for their serve, like so, you know that they're able to hit a very direct serve down the tee. However, when they're aiming out wide, they're not as able to create big angles, unless they're one of those players that hits with heavy slice. Whereas if the player stands a little bit wider, it starts to open up more angles and more of an opportunity for them to pull you out wide with their serve. But the wider they stand, the less effective their tee serve will be. So understanding this may help you to adjust your court position slightly. A standard serve position is roughly 1 meter from the center line. And if your opponent is in that position to serve, you should be somewhere around that standard return position I mentioned. However, if they are somebody that hugs that tee, you might want to consider taking a small step towards the tee yourself. And on the flip side, if your opponent stands slightly wider than that stand position, you might want to consider standing slightly wider. Now, again, the best players or the best servers can hit lots of different types of serve from one position. And if you're playing players of that level, that's when tip number 3 is going to help you. So my final tip before my bonus tip is looking at your opponent's ball toss on their serve. Now, players at a lower level, when they're mixing up their serves, have a more obvious difference between their different ball tosses. However, the stronger your opponents get, the tougher it is to see the differences. But there will be differences. Even at the highest level on the Pro Tour, players have tiny differences when they're mixing between hitting a flat serve, a slice serve, and a kick serve. Roger Federer is known to have one of the most disguised serves, as he's able to hit all of those serves from one type of ball toss, but generally that's very, very tough to do, and your opponents are going to give it away. What you can be looking out for at the other end of the court when you're waiting for your opponent to serve is when they throw that ball up, is the ball straight above them? Is it slightly out to their right? Or is it slightly out to their left? Now, every player is slightly different. Some players throw all of their ball tosses slightly out to the right, so your reading skills of their serve will get better and better as the match goes on. But generally, if a ball toss goes further out to the right-hand side for a right-handed player, it makes it much easier for them to hit a slice serve. That ball is going to swing from right to left, like so. However, if the ball toss goes slightly more to the left-hand side for a right-handed player, or the right-hand side for a left-handed player, it's actually easier to hit a kick serve or a topspin serve, like this. So by looking out for those differences within the ball toss, it can help you to understand where that serve is likely to go. So I've got a little test for you. Let's check out your reading skills. I'm going to hit 3 serves, a slice, a flat, and a topspin. And in the comments below, let me know in which order I hit them. So, which order did I hit those spins? So check out your opponent's serve within the warm-up or do some research to find out how they like to serve. Usually when it gets to the tight points like deuce or advantage, that's when your opponent is most likely to hit their favourite serve. So by knowing it, it's going to give you the edge when it gets tight. Check out their court position. They might make changes during the match, but for a closer look, check out their ball toss because it can really give away their intentions. So as promised, I've got a little bonus tip that's going to help you with your return of serves, and it's mixing up your court position. Now, when it comes to your return position, there are actually 2 positions. The first position is your initial setup that you do as they're setting up for their serve. But as they throw the ball up, you'll actually move into another position before you make your split step to move onto the ball. Now, generally, you would move in a straight line towards your opponent, towards your second position. However, by mixing up this position, you can really keep your opponent guessing. And you can also bait them into a certain type of serve that you want to receive. An example is if you've got a really strong forehand and you want your opponent to hit to your forehand, you can actually shift your position, opening up more space on that side. As they throw the ball up, you'll move straight back into your standard position, meaning that you're able to cover both ways. However, because you've shifted this way, you have momentum ready to take on that forehand that you wanted in the first place. Alternatively, if you really want a backhand return, stand slightly wider. Again, creating more of an opening, tempting them to hit that tee serve, but as they throw the ball up, you'll move back into your standard position. Mixing your return position up throughout the match and at certain points can really fox your opponent. It can bait them into hitting a certain type of serve, but also it's going to keep you on the move as well, allowing you to get into position much quicker. These tips should work regardless of your level. However, some of the earlier tips may not be so relevant if your opponent is really good at serving and really good at disguising it. Take a look at the differences within their ball toss, but also mixing up your position can help you even at the top end of the game. Good luck putting this into your next training sessions and matches, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.